Good morning.
Morning.
Good to be with you again. Good to have this great audience present, so many friends and fellow travelers on the road of life, fellow Christians that are here, guests from Tennessee and other places perhaps. We are glad that you're here this morning. Thank you for coming, and those of you who are traveling through, hope that you have a safe trip on your journey and a safe trip home to your destination as well. 23 years ago, it's hard to believe it's been that long since I last had I think I maybe have preached a time or two, but last time I had a gospel meeting here at Davison, back in 1997. 21 years. I did not go to Freedom Harmon for math. I went to study Bible. If you have your Bible with you, open to 2 Kings chapter 7. 2 Kings chapter 7. We're going to be looking at a lesson this morning from the Old Testament, beginning verse 3. Tonight, our lesson is entitled, I'm Not Ashamed of the Gospel of Christ, Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Tomorrow evening, Monday night, our lesson will be on Blessed by the Blood. On Tuesday night, we'll study a lesson entitled The Christian Race from Hebrews chapter 12. How to run the Christian race and what all is involved in that race. And then on Wednesday evening, as we finalize and bring our meeting to a close, the lesson will be on the world's deadliest disaster. The world's deadliest disaster. Today's lesson is entitled A Day of Good News. A Day of Good News. And before I get into the lesson, I want to tell you one story. A little boy in Bible class, and maybe several of you ladies have taught young children's class, little children, small children, and you know how precocious little boys can be sometimes. Well, one teacher, she had a little class of 4 and 5-year-olds, and she asked the class members each week, one after another, for them to bring something that would have a spiritual lesson to it. And on one week, one little boy, he brought a rock, and he said there was stony ground. And another child the next week brought a pack of seeds and said the sower went forth to sow the seed. The teacher commended the student. Yes, we see that connection, that Bible story. One little girl, she brought a candle, and she said, we are to let our light shine. Well, that's a good one, the teacher told the little girl. And then there was Jimmy. Jimmy wanted to make a big impact on his class, kind of like James here. Jim and Morris, you know. Jim always wanted to make a big impact on his class, and so he brought an egg. He brought the egg, he brought it up to the teacher, and he told her to stick out her hand, and he would show her what he brought, and she stuck out her hand, and he took that egg, and he cracked it, and poured the yolk on her hand. She says, well, what Bible story does that represent? And he said, well, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Well, I hope this morning that I can make an impact, the same kind of impact that maybe that Jimmy made on his teacher, that I can make on you. I want to tell this story to lead into our lesson this morning. The night was September the 8th. The year was 1860. And the steamship, it was a passenger steamship called Lady Elgin. It was on Lake Michigan. It had been down to Chicago, and passengers had boarded it. And the record is not clear as to how many people were on board Lady Elgin. Some say that numbers were as high as 700, maybe somewhere between 600 to 700 people. There were passengers who had boarded who were in some of the saloons or the salons and gaming rooms that were on this big steamship, and the party was going well into the night. Not everybody got off board before the ship embarked on its journey out onto Lake Michigan. Well, during the night, another ship, a schooner, the Augusta, collided with Lady Elgin. And Lady Elgin began to take on water. And so the captain told the first mate, we need to head towards shore. They were about 7 miles out on the lake, and they were close to the city of Evanston, Illinois. And there in Evanston, Illinois is Northwestern University. And they have a remarkable swim team, or at least they did back then. And there was a young man by the name of Edward Wilson Spencer. He was a star athlete. He was one of the star athletes on the swim team. And the students were woken up and they were asked to come help and maybe even to rescue some of the survivors. 160 people out of 600 to 700 survived that great tragedy. Well, what Edward did was, when he finally got to the shore in the early hours of the morning, it was still dark and the waves and the breakers were rolling up on shore and it was frigid cold, and he jumped into the water. He grabbed a rope and he took it out to there and he swam as far as he could. And when he found the first survivor, he tied the rope around the person and then he tugged on it. And that told the people on shore to pull him in, and so they would pull him in. And one after another, he swam out for about 6 hours straight, bringing survivors back to shore. Finally, after 6 long hours in that Arctic frigid cold water in Lake Michigan, he collapsed with exhaustion. So they took him to the hospital, and he finally woke up in the hospital, and his brother was there, and he said to his brother, Will, did I do my full duty? Did I do my best? And his brother Will said, Ed, you saved 17 people. What a great heroic story that is of Edward Wilson, who gave of himself to save those that were drowning, those that were perishing in that water in Lake Michigan. Well, what a great story that is, but also there's another wonderful story that's recorded in the pages of God's Word in 2 Kings chapter 7. There in this time period, the kingdom of Israel has divided. The kingdom to the north, the 10 northern tribes, is the kingdom of Israel. King Jehoram is their king, and then you have the 2 southern tribes, the kingdom of Judah. Samaria is the capital of Israel in the north, and King Jehoram is there. But that kingdom, that city, the capital city of Samaria, has been besieged by the Assyrian army, King Ben-Hadad. King Ben-Hadad had circled the city, he had trapped it, he had surrounded it, and just kind of like a giant python snake, just squeezing it to death and starving the people. You couldn't get out and you couldn't get in. Well, right outside, camped outside of the city, there's 4 leopards. 4 leopards, and they make this severe desperation they have. When you look at the text of 2 Kings chapter 7, we read there beginning in verse 3. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, then we shall live, and if they kill us, then we shall but die. Look at this severe desperation that these lepers are in. How the world is today. You and I, we face as Christians this serious dilemma in evangelism. What are we going to do? Are we going to do what Edward Spencer did? Do our best to fulfill our duty? To do what our God calls us to do? You know what Jesus wants us to be? He wants us to be soul winners for Him, doesn't He? Because Jesus said, I have come that I might seek and save that which is lost. And He calls us to do the same. It's been said that a researcher in church growth did a study of people, and he found out that 95% of people who call themselves Christians have never won a single soul to the Lord. 95% of people who refer to themselves as Christians have never won a single person to Jesus Christ. Another study was conducted of 100 churches with the question, the number one question being this: why does your church exist? I want you to think about that question for a moment. Why does the Davison Church of Christ exist? And if you're not from here, why does the congregation where you attend exist? Let me give you the response. 89% of the people who responded to that survey answered, my church exists for the sole purpose of taking care of my family. 89%. 9%. The church is here to take care of me, and to take care of my kids. That's not why the church is here, is it? It's not why the church is here at all. Only 11% answered the church exists to win the world for Jesus Christ. Now that's outside of churches of Christ, but can you imagine what it would be like if that survey was conducted among churches of Christ? What would the answers be? That's a sad commentary on the state of our world. It's a sad commentary on the state of Christianity. But what if that question was asked of you? Why are you here? And what does this church exist for? Number 4. These 4 men had a very sympathetic decision. Look at verse 10. In verse 10, the text says, "So they came and they called unto the porter of the city, and they told them, saying, We came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied, and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night, and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry. Therefore they are gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out to the city, we shall catch them alive and get them into the city." You see, King Jehoram was suspicious, wasn't he? He was skeptical about this. This is just a plot. This is a plot by the Syrians to get us outside. We'll go out there, and then they'll attack us and they'll kill us. They only had 5 horses left in Samaria. The suggestion was made, let's send 5 men on horses to go out. And the king says, no, let's just send 3. He wanted to keep back 2. What a horrible situation. What a sympathetic decision. Look at the grief, the anguish these people are in. But when they go and investigate, they find that the story of the lepers was true. The soldiers are all gone. God had worked a mighty miracle upon the Syrian army, causing them to hear this sound, and they thought it was the sound of horses and armies marching upon them, and they took off in flight. And now the camp is left empty. It's abandoned, and there is food for all the people of Samaria to live and to survive. My friends, the story of the siege of Samaria, I believe, is a call for the church today and a call for us to truly be about our Father's business, to be about the business of evangelism, that we need to resolve in our hearts and our minds that we're going to do our duty. We're going to do our best, just as Ed Spencer did more than 100 years ago when he saved those 17 people from drowning. We need to be throwing out the lifeline. We need to be rescuing the perishing, those that are drowning spiritually in their sins. And today I want to challenge each and every Christian that's here this morning to let those words sink deep into our hearts. Brethren, we're not doing right. If we sit here idle, if we sit here silent and don't say anything in this day of good news, we're not doing God's will, are we? If we don't tell others about the Christ. How can we just sit here and rest upon our laurels or on our complacency and not go forth into our community and share Jesus Christ with those who are dying? We can't sit and wait for the punishment to come, or it will overtake us. Let's do our duty, give our best efforts to be the soul winners that Jesus wants us to be in this sin-sick and spiritually dying world. Let's take them the bread of life. Let's take to them the water of life so that they might drink freely. Let's take to them the gospel. In the year of 1924, there was another young man by the name of Ed, and his name was Edward Young. He had heard the story about Edward Spencer some 64 years earlier, how that this swimmer, this athletic swimmer on the swim team at Northwestern University, swam 6 hours straight, pulling people to survival back to shore, and he wrote a song. He wrote a song based upon that story that has such a dramatic lesson for us that we can draw from it. And it has a very penetrating question to it. Here's the question that's in the title of the song. Have I done my best for Jesus? Justin, have you ever heard that song? Have I done my best for Jesus? Here's the words. I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus, who died upon the cruel tree, to think of his great sacrifice at Calvary? I know my Lord expects the best from me. I wonder, have I cared enough for others, or have I let them die alone? I might have helped a wanderer to the Savior, the seed of precious life I might have sown. How many are the lost that I have lifted? How many are the chained I've helped set free? I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus when He has done so much for me? As you think about all that the Lord has done for you, are you doing your best for Him? It kind of slaps us in the face, doesn't it? It gets your attention if you're not. If you're not doing your best for Jesus. I wonder this morning if there's someone here who's maybe not a Christian. Haven't you been on the devil's side long enough? Isn't it time that you change sides and come over to the Lord's side? Don't you want to be on the side of the right, the saved, and the redeemed? Give your life to Him, the one who's given His all for you. All you need to do this morning is obey from the heart that form of doctrine which has been delivered unto us, which is the gospel. To give our best to Him in obedience to His will by becoming a servant of righteousness rather than being a servant of sin. I don't want to serve the devil any longer. Why not serve the Lord then? And receive that abundant life that Jesus came to bless you with. You can receive it if you will but obey Him. Maybe you're here this morning, you're the subject of the gospel invitation of Christ. Don't hesitate, don't wait. Why not come today? Come and repent of your sins. Confess your faith in Him as the Son of God and be baptized in His blood. Friend, if you need to do that, won't you obey Him this morning? Maybe as a Christian you're here already. Maybe you need to rededicate your life to Him. Our meeting this week, our theme is Light the Fire. If we dedicated ourselves to really light the fire within each and every one of us, if we let that fire burn brightly in our hearts and in our lives, and by our example, as we take the gospel to others, they'll see the light of Jesus in us, won't they? You see, if Jesus lives in me, and if He's greater than me, then why aren't other people seeing Him shine through me? Is Christ shining in you? And if you're a Christian, my friend, you need to be a soul winner for Jesus. If you need to come and respond to the invitation of Christ, won't you come now? All together, stand and sing.